Hey everyone, it's Josh Rosenberg, Second Vice President of TWU Local 556, here with another great episode of AirWaves, the TWU Local 556 podcast. Today we're going to talk to Xander Ricker, who is one of the co-chairs of our scheduling committee. Our scheduling committee is a pretty well-known committee. There's a lot of rumors that goes around about what the scheduling committee does, so we're going to get to the bottom of all those and have a great chat with Xander today. Hope you stick around. So again, everyone, welcome to the show today. We're here with Xander Ricker, who's one of our co-chairs of the scheduling committee, and here to just do a little bit of a deeper dive on what that looks like. So Xander, so how'd you get involved with the local and specifically the scheduling committee? What did that look like?
I decided that I'd like to get more involved, and so I knew some people on the scheduling committee, and so I volunteered for about 6 months, twice a month, flying out to Dallas and volunteering, figuring out how everything worked, and I picked it up. It's not for everybody, and so I picked it up relatively quickly, and then a few years later ended up becoming the scheduling committee chair, and have served in that role. This is the third term.
Okay, cool.
So it's been going on 9 years as one of the chairs.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And also, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention you're also one of our elected executive board members. You're the domicile executive board member for Denver.
Yes,
right?
correct. I am the Denver domicile executive board member.
Cool. Yeah. So you hear not only through the scheduling committee do you hear like what flight attendants like and don't like to fly, but you also, through being one of the base reps, you get a lot of feedback on what that looks like.
Definitely.
Right? Especially in our largest base, right?
Also true.
Yeah, totally. So why don't you talk about what the scheduling committee does? Because the first thing, whenever the scheduling committee gets brought up, at least from my perspective, when I talk to somebody about it, it's why do I have a 5-leg day?
Sure.
Why is this duty day so long and this overnight so short? So like, what are you guys doing to make these days horrible? Like,
Sure.
Yeah.
So what I'll say first is that we don't build any of the pairings.
Gotcha. You don't build the parents.
We do not build the pairings.
They do not build the parents. Right.
So recently there's some new contract language that Southwest is supposed to consider the considerations and recommendations of the scheduling committee. We have seen that in some cases. There was a double Havana where people, flight attendants were going through customs twice, and so there was some hiccups with that. We were able to get that rectified, and but by and large, the scheduling committee doesn't get a ton of input on what the pairings actually look like.
Right.
They're put through a system, and all the flight segments, there's a computer system that puts, hundreds of thousands of flight segments together and then builds those into the pairings. And then those pairings end up in open time, which no one can see yet because it's 2 months out. And then we take the pairings from open time essentially and then put those on the bid packet lines.
Gotcha. So it seems like a bunch of pairings get spit out to you guys and in open time and all over the place, and you all just package those together in more flight attendant friendly packages.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
So essentially what we do is like yesterday, which was June 28th and 29th, it's the last 2 days of the month typically. The scheduling committee meets in Dallas. We're all there in person. And when we write primary lines, there's typically 7 line writers. Previously, there were, nothing was automated. And so we wrote everything by hand. And so Southwest would tell us like, hey, in Denver, you get 1,100 line positions. In Las Vegas, you get 753 line positions, whatever the case may be for each base. And these are the statistics we need you to hit. In this base, purity needs to be 72%. It always needs to be more than 70%. But, sometimes we can get it into the 80s. It just depends on the staffing for that month.
Well, so talk about purity. So what is that? Because I hear you guys use that term a lot, but maybe flight attendants don't exactly know like what are the metrics around purity? What does that actually mean?
Yeah, so purity, essentially the way that is defined is any line that is the same working days every week all month long. So maybe that might be 3 turns, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all month long. It could be 2 back-to-back 2 days. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It could be a turn 3 days. So a a Friday turn and then a 3-day Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Or, what you most typically will see is your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 3-day all month, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so on and so forth throughout the whole month.
Right.
So that would be considered a pure line.
Yeah. And is it AM or PM that plays into purity also, or is it, I guess, what ranks higher, AM, PM, or days of the week?
Per the scheduling policy, there can only be, obviously we always try to keep all AMs together and all PMs together. We also try to keep, if it has a long international overnight, we try to keep those together. We try to keep the Hawaii pairings together because we look at it as, it's a seniority-based work group. And if you're senior enough to hold an all Hawaii line, that's what we try to keep together. Yeah. But whenever you see lines that don't have maybe there's a PM on your AM line, or maybe there's an AM on your PM line, or there were 4 Hawaii trips that all could have been on the same line, but they're not. The only reason for that should be pay. So every line has to pay at least 80 TFP.
Right.
And so you can't have 4 19.5 trips.
Yeah.
On one line.
Yeah, because that's the big metric that you guys need to stick by, is minimum pay has to be this much and maximum pay has to be this much, right? So you guys you need to play in that range regardless of, how many trips or AM, PM, right? And so going more into what people prefer to fly, right? So you have, your 3 days in a turn, you have your turn lines, you have your international trips. Now we got our red eyes. So we have over 20,000 flight attendants, and I feel like we have over 20,000 perfect schedules, right?
Sure.
So how does your group take all those different perspectives and try to, manage all those throughout each time you guys build lines? Because I know, like I said, everyone's got a different perfect line.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. There are thousands of perspectives. Absolutely. Yeah. We try to accommodate something for everybody. But also, we have to work within the metrics that Southwest gives us, weekends off, 48-hour breaks, like, your 3-day, 2 days off and another pairing, whatever that looks like. There's only, we try to keep things together, whether that be red eyes. We try to keep all the red eyes together because there is a good group of people who enjoy flying the red eyes. So we try to keep the red eyes together and try and keep like trips together so that the people that want to work those trips are able to bid for those trips.
Right. Yeah. And I think, so when you're having those conversations and kind of figuring out what this looks like, so I know you mentioned you do this in person, and even through COVID, I don't think a lot of people know that you are still, the whole scheduling committee was going to headquarters still, like doing everything in person. So maybe talk a little bit about why that kind of team effort and doing it in person is really important or necessary.
Absolutely. So the computer system that we use is only loaded on a select number of computers at headquarters. And it's beneficial to do it in person because everybody's in the same room together. We're able to bounce ideas off of each other, like, hey, do you think this looks better? Or would you do this way or that way? Hey, I can make an extra pure line, but it means that this other trip ends up over here. What's your perspective on that? So we're constantly bouncing ideas off of each other, which is very beneficial as we go through the build process. And then on top of that, we're there with Southwest Airlines isn't in the room with us, but they're close by. So if there's a, question where, hey, I can make an additional pure line, but it's going to cost you 3 reserves, you being Southwest.
Yeah.
Are you okay with me making an extra line, which now your reserve staffing is going to be less in this space? And I'm constantly looking. I have an Excel spreadsheet. It shows what the staffing, numbers are going to be for that month. And so I'm constantly, hey, in Chicago, the reserve is going to be 27%, but the rest of the average for that month is 25%. If I use 6 more flight attendants in Chicago that are now going to be line holders, that only brings your percentage of Chicago reserves down to 27.7%. Are you okay with me, adding an additional 3 positions or 6 positions? And your reserve staffing really isn't going to change that much.
Yeah, and I think that's probably another thing that people don't realize, that you guys are in there advocating on a monthly basis, like make these lines better, make them more flight attendant friendly. And it's that balance between, staffing, like Southwest Airlines wants to staff the minimum amount of people, right?
Sure.
And then, making it worker friendly, which is, what you guys are doing. So there's always that push pull where you guys are, fighting Southwest to get, better conditions for flight attendants.
Yeah, we're constantly trying to, my fight is always, can we have more line holders, and can there be the least amount of people on reserve that Southwest can maintain the operation?
Yeah, right. So I think a good example that you brought up to me before is kind of like a balloon, right? So can you explain
absolutely.
that example?
Duke, who runs the program that builds the pairings and helps out with the line optimization, he describes it as a balloon. So this is both with lines and pairing building, is when you squeeze a balloon somewhere, it expands somewhere else. So it's a give and take where you're constantly, whatever you do is going to affect something somewhere else. So whether we're building, more turn lines, now you're affecting pay somewhere else, or if it's less sit somewhere, maybe there's longer sits somewhere else, or your legs per day could increase somewhere. And so it's a give and take where you're trying to build everything the best that you can, but also not sacrifice somewhere else where it makes things too undesirable that someone's not going to want to work that.
Right. So it's like, we talk about our 3 days and our turns. If you take all those turns off and put them all on turn lines, we've got these beautiful turn lines, but then the lines with the 3 days may not pay. So then you can't build. So it's always that push pull, right? Of
because sometimes you got great 3-day pairings that are very desirable. Maybe it's got a long Punta Cana overnight. You want to keep those all together, but they only pay $19.5. And so now it's, do you put a turn on the front of that 3-day that pays $19.5 to keep all those Punta Cana overnights together, now being a turn 3-day line? Or do you separate those out?
Right.
And the turns end up on a turn line?
Yeah. Right. Gotcha. Yeah. It's amazing what you guys, I've sat in before and kind of watched it, and it's like, I've grasped it a little bit, gone over my head a little bit, but it's pretty amazing. All the stuff that you guys keep in your heads, it's got to do this and got to do that. So it takes a lot. It's not as easy as people.
No, it's definitely, people come in to watch, and there's a lot more that goes into it than I think people realize.
Yeah, right. So if someone did want to get a little bit better understanding of how it all works,
sure.
What would they do? Who would they contact? What would that look like?
Yeah, so you can contact the scheduling committee directly, scheduling committee at TWU556.org. You can reach out to myself, A. Ricker at TWU556.org. If you're interested in coming to check it out, see what we do, we try to accommodate guests when we can. We write twice a month, so we write the primary bid packets at the end of the month. That typically takes 2 full days of line writing, and then so basically once those all get published and people bid, then all the vacation trips get pulled, they get dumped back into open time, and then we come back on the 9th, and then we take all of those pairings that were pulled for vacation and then build the vacation relief lines. So that usually takes place on the 9th of the month.
Right. Gotcha. And so like people have come in a lot and kind of experienced the process. So what do you think is the biggest difference from when they come in and they're like, why do you guys build days like this? What's going on here? And then when they leave, what do you think is the biggest perspective shift after someone sees the whole process?
I think one, people don't, we work through lunch. We sit at our computers with our lunch in front of us, just shoveling food in, and they're like, wow, you guys work all day long here in this room, in this dungeon. And they leave, saying, oh my gosh, I didn't realize there were so many rules and so many metrics that you have to follow where, hey, I can make this clean line, but now all of a sudden you have to have at least 35% of the bid packet with weekends off. And because you shifted some things around, now your weekends off are now under 35%. So now you're trying to go back and fix somewhere where you can make another weekend offline. So people leave understanding that there's so much that goes into this process, and we look at so many different things, and we're constantly trying to make adjustments where we can make, more clean lines, keep those pairings together, but staying within those metrics that we have to meet per the contract.
Yeah, right. And so if you had just maybe 2 or 3 takeaways of what you really want people to know about the scheduling committee, what would they be? I have one that I think is important. It's that if there was no scheduling committee and Southwest was just, free to put out whatever they want, the lines would be like absolute trash, right? Like
Correct.
people, they would just be what benefits Southwest the most. So I think just even having a scheduling committee where we have flight attendants that fly on a regular basis, that bid and say, this is what I want, or this is who I talk to in the base. I think that's a big thing. And sometimes we just don't see what it would look like if something didn't exist, right? But it would be pretty horrible if it didn't exist.
I would say that, I keep track of what Southwest gives us and then what actually gets published, and the difference in statistics there, the increase in purity, the increase in weekends off, how much better the bid packet is when it actually gets published versus like what we were given.
Right.
And then, so that I think is a big takeaway. Like you have flight attendants that fly every month that are coming to Dallas that are writing these bid packets. And then also, that being said, like everybody on the scheduling committee is a line flying flight attendant. They bid every month, and often hear the comment like, oh, you build your line every month. And it's like, yeah, I do build the line, but I also build all the lines, and the line that I built for myself I couldn't hold because I wasn't senior enough.
You're right. Yeah.
And
you can build the perfect line, but you probably ain't going to get it.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not going to hold it.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody that comes bids, flies, and so yeah, I mean, everybody has a vested interest in making the best product that we can. And some of our committee members, it takes a long time to understand how this process works. I would say that on average, to become proficient at it, it takes between 18 months and 2 years to really get a good grasp on how things work. And so you have, committee members that have been there for, 2 decades, down to, we have a couple people that have been there for, I think the most recent is probably been on the scheduling committee for 18 months. And so it takes a long time to get up to speed and understand, but everybody wants and cares so much about publishing the best product that we absolutely can.
Yeah. I was talking to one of your newer members, and he was so proud. He's like, I got all these extra turn lines. This is also great. It was all so beautiful and pretty. And then Southwest said, no, we can't afford more staffing.
Yes, correct. Yeah, I remember when that happened.
Yeah. So I know it can be frustrating too, to go through that process and learn all the rules and then kind of be shut down by Southwest.
Sure.
Yeah. So, well, cool. Well, thanks, Xander. I really appreciate you talking about the scheduling committee, giving everyone a little more insight on what you guys do. And again, if anyone wants to reach out to Xander, it's A Ricker, because it's Alexander, right? So
Correct.
A Ricker at TWU556.org. If you want to learn a little bit more about the scheduling committee, get involved, maybe go shadow them for a month. Go ahead and reach out.
Please do.